So I've always liked when other YouTubers, do a quick bookshelf tour. My bookshelf kind of grew based on the inspiration of seeing other people's. I think what I have at no other bookshelf. Welcome back to the Muscle Code YouTube channel. This is part 2 of my top 5 favorite books of all time. It's my favorite books, not the best book or the most reread or the best written. My favorite books of all time. Number 3, we'll jump right into it, is a big one. Brandon Sanderson, Way of Kings. The Way of Kings. Now, this was kind of like early in my hardcore reading career. I heard a lot about it, and just the fact that it's so big and it had some good reviews, but I honestly didn't think I can read this entire book at that time. There was no way I could. Not that I wasn't a great reader, but this seemed intimidating. It seemed intimidating, but I read it. I read the entire thing, and it was, especially the ending, it was truly awesome. It was what I was looking for. It's just like the definition of epic. It's probably the best magic system in all of fantasy ever. And it does some cool things with oaths and with character development, but it could have easily been, it was a contender for number 1, but it lands at number 3 on my top 5 favorite books of all time. And how can I put it? It goes by the way there's interludes throughout the book that separate the parts. So even though it's massively long, it goes by somewhat smooth. The interludes are spaced, the book's kind of complete. It's almost like Brandon Sanderson himself even says in each Stormlight Archive book, and this is book 1 in the Stormlight Archive, it's really 4 books in one, according to his standards. And it kind of feels that way. Each part concludes to a satisfaction, and then there's interludes, which are always a little interesting, and then moves on to the next book. So it does go by smooth. And then the ending, the last 100 pages or so, makes it all worth it. It's really an incredible ending. I remember the last scene. It gave me chills. It was so good. It gave me chills, and it really solidified my love of reading, my love of fantasy, and it's worth slogging through some of the parts, but in the end, it's totally worth it. To my slight disappointment, I haven't been as big of a fan of the next few books. So Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, and Rhythm of War aren't my favorite books, but I'll keep with the series just because it's such a standard in the fantasy world right now. But Way of Kings, there'll almost never be a book like it. I feel like it's even on Goodreads. I think it's number 3rd, the 2nd or 3rd highest rated book, even on Goodreads. So it makes me feel good that my evaluation isn't way off. So Way of Kings is my 3rd favorite book of all time. Truly awesome, truly epic, and especially if you like magical fantasy, over the top fantasy, almost like comic book, video game fantasy. People say that Brandon Sanderson would have been a great video game dialogue writer, and I can see exactly what they're saying. So Way of Kings, my number 3 favorite book of all time. Now moving into my second favorite book of all time, I have no choice in the matter. I'm being honest. It's not a shameless plug. It's not egotistical. It's just honesty, and it's more of a commentary on the way that kind of promoting other people to write their own first books. Because I didn't go to school for writing. I'm not an author. I'm not a Brandon Sanders who's been, kind of reading books since they were 8 years old and, were literature at the liberal arts colleges. I'm just a regular guy who worked hard on his own book that he really likes. And my second favorite book of all time is my book. The Muscle Code. I'm not going to even talk about the specifics of the book because I don't really do that on this channel. I'm just going to basically say that when I talk to other people who are thinking about writing their book, I always say the reason to write it is because you will love it when you work hard and you truly finish it to your satisfaction. You will love it yourself and you will like to read. I like to read. That's what I like to do. So I worked hard. It says 15 years in the making, which is true, but it took me 3 years to write, editing and writing combined. And when I sit down to write it, when I sit down to read it, I still read it like every month or so. It's relaxing to me. It's really like, it's relaxing to me. And it also has helped me with my fitness program, like keeping things at top of mind so I don't forget anything that I like to emphasize. And even if no one ever wrote it, if I just wrote it for myself and no one ever wrote it, no one ever read it, I would kind of care less because it's been like kind of like everything I've worked for in my fitness program was born, and here's the book. And that's why it's number 2 of it's because it's my favorite book. I can read it every month and enjoy it. And I even, in Isaac Asimov's books, in one of his kind of like introductions, he talks about how he talks about how he wrote these like 5 mystery books, and I really love them. He goes, imagine if I didn't love my own books. So that's kind of like in the same vein as that. So not a shameless plug, not egotistical, 100% honest. I had no choice in the matter. My number 2 favorite book of all time is the book that I wrote, The Muscle Code, in terms of enjoyability of reading it. So there you have it. At least I didn't give it number 1. So at least there's that. So next time we'll do my number 1 favorite book of all time, and we'll take it from there. So hope to see you back. Thanks. So I've always liked when other YouTubers, do a quick bookshelf tour. My bookshelf kind of grew based on the inspiration